I'm Linda Elseygood, founder of the LDN Research Trust. It has been my honour to interview LDN researchers, prescribers, pharmacists and patients from around the world for many conditions. Thank you for joining us.
Today we have joining us Elizabeth from the United States, who uses LDN for chronic Lyme disease, chronic fatigue syndrome, food sensitivities, and poisoning by Cipro. Thank you for joining us, Elizabeth.
Thank you for having me.
So, you were telling me before we started that you were very young when you first developed these problems. Would you like to tell us a bit about that?
Sure. When I was really little, I had a lot of anxiety and I was nauseated just constantly on the verge. I was on the verge of vomiting at all times, and doctors couldn't figure out, why or what to do. And then when I was 12, I got much, much sicker, and it took me about 10 years to figure out why, but that's when I had my first pharmaceutical injury from Accutane, and that allowed the Lyme disease to really flourish because my immune system was no longer able to keep it in check because it was so damaged. So I continued to get sicker and sicker in my teenage years, developing chronic fatigue syndrome and hypothyroidism, insomnia, food sensitivities, depression, anxiety, OCD, gastroparesis, just all kinds of autoimmune disorders and symptoms just kept coming on and coming on. And I became disabled, and nobody really knew why or what was happening. And then I moved to California, and I got this certain kind of treatment done. It's a holistic treatment to help reverse some sensitivities called NAET. And then I got better, and I was able to function again. And then in my late 20s, I got a urinary tract infection. I took Cipro, and then I've been bedbound ever since, and it's been 10 years now. Excuse me. But I didn't know why, I was so sick until 1 year ago. I took Cipro again, and at that point, it just about killed me, and I could feel that my body was giving up. And all of those symptoms that I had had for years got exponentially worse. I couldn't even stand up for longer than maybe 2 minutes. And that's called POTS or dysautonomia. And, I just knew I had to find an answer, something to help me fight my way out of this. But part of the problem with that is that I couldn't even tolerate the tools that I would need to heal. So I couldn't tolerate supplements. I couldn't tolerate food, heat, the sun. I couldn't sleep. And I had asked my doctor for a feeding tube because I couldn't tolerate food. I couldn't eat. And that was really terrifying. And it's really scary when you don't know how you're going to get out of something and you have you can't use the tools that you really need to use. And that's when LDN, came into the picture.
Mm-hmm. And when you started LDN, did you notice any introductory side effects?
Yeah, I did. I'm very sensitive to medication, so it's not uncommon for me to have side effects. Mm-hmm. So I felt like I had the flu, which I already felt like, but I felt like I had a worse flu. I had migraines and racing heart, and I needed to decrease my thyroid medication for a little while, and then later on I needed to increase it back up. So that helped me with the heart racing, and I had some insomnia, so I eventually started taking it in the morning, and that helped quite a bit. And I had about 10 weeks worth of side effects until I finally realized I just needed to decrease my dose. I'm one of those people that is very sensitive, and I happen to just need a small amount, and that's what did the trick for me. And any side effect I had was worth it. I would go through that over and over again in order to get the amazing benefits that I've gotten from it.
Mm-hmm. You did send me a list. Would you like to tell people what you think in 10 months LDN has done for you?
Yeah. And first I'll say that it is very rare that anything ever works for me. So if something does work for me, it surprises me. Mm-hmm. But, you know, in 26 years of being sick, nothing else has ever helped me the way that LDN has. Before I started taking LDN, I couldn't fall asleep until 7 a.m., and I could only sleep for maybe 5 hours, and it was restless sleep. And now I can fall asleep, you know, at a relatively decent hour, much well before 7 a.m. I can sleep for 8 hours, and it's a deep, good sleep. I sleep better than I have in 20 years. And brain inflammation is improved, gut inflammation, anxiety is decreased. You know, I have a lot of social anxiety, and I always have from the Lyme disease. And, you know, anytime I had to leave my house, it was very difficult. Anytime I had to think about leaving my house or think about making a phone call, it was awful. So that's a lot better. And food sensitivities, they're about 85% improved. And like I said, you know, I could barely tolerate food. I asked for a feeding tube, and I could only tolerate a few homemade organic baby foods. But now I can eat, you know, all kinds of foods, like a beautiful salad, and it feels surreal to be able to eat again, because there were years that went by that I couldn't tolerate food. And that got scary. So now I'm so excited because I get to actually focus on nutrition for the very first time. And I know that that's going to launch my healing forward dramatically. And then I had 25 years of depression, and that is gone. And I was able to get off antidepressants, which didn't work for me, but LDN sure has. And eventually I developed OCD. It was like obsessive cyclical worrying. It was like a hamster on a wheel, and I would have the same thoughts go around in my head for weeks, months, and eventually years. And so that's gone. And I have light, heat, and sun sensitivity. So those have all improved greatly. Like I can use an infrared sauna now. And my mom used to call my house the bat cave because I had all the windows completely covered up, and it's really dark. But now it doesn't have to be that way. I can actually have sunlight coming into my house. Let's see what else. I have had to be on birth control pills for 8 years to suppress my cycle because I have endometriosis. And now in LDN, I don't have that pain anymore. So I was able to come off those, which is great because they're terrible for the immune system. Excuse me. And then my body temperature for 20 years has been low, and now it's normal for the first time, and that is just amazing. My brain fog is better. I can communicate with other people better. Right after I had the Cipro poisoning, I had a really hard time communicating with other people. I had a hard time speaking, thinking, typing. And, you know, again, that was another thing that was scary. You kind of get lost inside yourself when you're very sick. And this has helped me bounce back from that. That lifelong nausea that I had, you know, I had been diagnosed with cyclic vomiting syndrome. That's gone. And the gastroparesis is gone. And chronic constipation is gone. Hypoglycemia is better. My libido's better. I've been able to come off of multiple pharmaceutical medications, you know, so I know that over time is going to improve my health quite a bit. I was able to get off of testosterone, birth control, high blood pressure medications, the 2 antidepressants, and then now I'm in the process of weaning off medication for chronic fatigue syndrome. So that will dramatically improve my health, over time as well, I'm sure. And I really feel like LDN saved my life. I like I said, my body was giving up.
What an amazing, inspirational story. And as you were saying, you've only been taking LDN for 10 months. I myself found I carried on improving for 18 months. So I would hope that you would continue seeing even greater benefits than you have already. And to have reduced all your medications so far, I think is amazing. You've done extremely well. And it's not it's not easy when you're in that difficult place, when you're so sick, to actually get out of that deep, dark tunnel that you're in. It just seems virtually impossible at the time, doesn't it, to get better when you're that sick?
Absolutely. I didn't know how. I had no idea how I was going to do it. So I'm really glad that we found this. I knew that I had to do something. And then, I found the LDN groups online, and then I'd spent all day, every day for months reading about other people's experiences. And I'm afraid of a lot of pharmaceuticals now. I mean, after having such severe injuries, of course I'm afraid of it, but I was not afraid of LDN. And because I kept seeing success story roll in these groups day after day, and it's inspiring. And I hoped that maybe it would help me too, but, I was a little skeptical because nothing ever does. And then it did, and it helped big time. And I appreciate you saying that, you think it might help even more so over time. And I've read that. I think I read that maybe up to 2 years or so that new benefits of LDN can continue. Is that correct?
I don't know about 2 years. I mean, personally, I can say 18 months. But, maybe people would see benefits for longer. But, I mean, your story is amazing. And I would be honoured if in a year's time that we interview you again for an update.
Yeah, let's do it. I anticipate that things will continue to get better and better. I can't wait.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing your story with us.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you.
Do you have LDN experience to share? If so, please email me, linda@ldnrt.org. I look forward to hearing from you.